deal with this, presenting Blood Artist into double Vampire Nighthawk, and Hal was like, yeah, sure, I can deal with that.
So continuing to move that to move along. So we saw there a pair of 5-1s. Here's another pair of 5-1s. We have Luke Okada and Christian Dawson. Our first Revelation deck of this Standard Open here.
Is it really?
Yeah, we had Standard Open Revelation winning the Standard Open this morning, and then no copies of it since.
Well, Luke Okada casts Sin Collector after a Cartel Aristocrat. He sees a Terminus, 2 Azorius Charms, and a War Leader's Helix alongside 2 lands and an Assemble the Legion.
Yeah, interesting enough, Christian Dawson's control deck playing a much larger number of creatures. It's not playing Reckoner, but it is playing 3 Restos, 3 Snapcasters, and then basically a bunch of instants.
Luke appears to have done some interesting things with his deck post-board. He still has Blood Artist in his deck, which in my experience is pretty poor against the blue-white-red deck. It dies to Pillar of Flame, which they have effectively 4 to 7 copies of, depending on how many Snapcaster meters they have. And it also is not just generally very good because it doesn't have power. It can't attack.
Yeah, we saw a Sin Collector taking a War Leader's Helix from Christian Dawson. Then Luke swung his Cartel Aristocrat only to get it Azorius Charmed.
Sin Collector, unsurprisingly, does not meet an Azorius Charm. Christian not eager to have his sins collected again.
Yeah. Do you think there that Luke is right in letting the Cartel Aristocrat get Azorius Charmed as opposed to sacking Sin Collector?
I actually disagree with it, especially considering his hand. If you look at it, he has a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, a Sire of Insanity, a Blasphemous Act, and a Blood Artist.
So if he'd drawn that he wants to draw that fourth land really bad.
It's very important. Even considering that his opponent has Azorius Charm, he still needs to hit it. He needs to hit land drops in order to get that Sires. That's what I would be transitioning to make my game plan. But that's why I'm so confused by this, Blood Artist Blasphemous Act plan, because that's very counterintuitive. I feel like he's sideboarded a little strangely.
So we see a swing for 4 from Luke that puts Christian possibly down to 14. Christian's hand still does have another Azorius Charm. And once again, the charm on the Aristocrat's going to work, and that's just going to time walk Luke, right?
Yeah. It's not as bad this time because Luke does have a follow-up spell in Boros Reckoner. He's going to go ahead and cast it. But
his next draw is going to be really bad. It's going to be that Cartel Aristocrat again.
He has to be very wary. He knows there's an Assemble the Legion, which he doesn't really have a realistic way to beat right now.
We can Blasphemous Act.
Oh, well, that's super effective.
Yeah. As we see, he does have the Blasphemous Act and the Boros Reckoner set up.
If Christian has, any way to get rid of this board before Luke can actually just kill the opponent, he'll be in trouble.
Right, so like a Supreme Verdict, for example.
He knows that Terminus is there. All Christian has to do is make that 6th land drop, and he's pretty much on easy street. Luke's staring at the board. He can no longer even if he had played a 4th land, he wouldn't be able to play Falcon Wrath Aristocrat this turn. So he missed out on basically a fair bit of damage/tempo he could have gotten. He's going to send these creatures in. Christian goes for a War Leader's Helix on Boros Reckoner. I'll break him a little ahead.
Yeah.
Takes 4,
gains 4. Gains 4. So that's just a Doomblade, a really expensive Doomblade,
really
right?
expensive Doomblade, but it does get the Reckoner off the table.
I mean, at this point, because he has Luke stuck on mana, even though it's a 4-mana Doomblade, a 4-mana Doomblade seems to me to be a really good card.
Yeah, it's definitely fine. Luke is threat light as a result of his sideboarding strategy. He has these Blood Artists, they don't attack, they die to Is It Staticaster, they're just creatures that get swept up by Terminus.
We see that sideboard Is It Staticaster in Christian's hand, facing down, an army of X1s.
It's important to note, not only is Blood Artist not good in this situation, it's in fact just not good against basically every card Christian is holding, with the possible exception of Assemble the Legion. Right. And one of the more interesting parts about the matchup is that Is It Staticaster is just already good against the Aristocrats. You don't really want to make it better by keeping in these 0/1s.
The interesting thing is that Christian's opting, not to shoot anything yet, which is a pretty relevant thing to do. There's the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat that's in Luke's hand. He could play post-combat, but Sin Collector is the only human on the table.
That's true. Christian, in response to Cartel Aristocrat, does decide to go ahead and zap Blood Artist.
That's a Blood Artist, a drain for 1, but Christian's still at a pretty healthy life total here. He has 6 lands now in play, and really, I think he's just waiting to find a revelation. He has a Terminus, a Assemble the Legion,
I'd be pretty tempted to thump down that Assemble right now.
He has a 2nd Staticaster.
Yeah, he has the 2nd Staticaster, but it actually doesn't do much on this particular board. Cartel Aristocrat would live through it for a turn as a result of that Sin Collector. I would kind of want to get the assemble down. It's a clock. It blocks pretty well. And yeah, it's got a lot of things going for it.
Interestingly enough, Luke has also sided in Assemble the Legion, which, while typically a good card against control, Christian Dawson does have an Is It Staticaster in play.
Yeah, like I said, Is It Staticaster already a very good card against you? Boarding in cards that make it even better, kind of a suspect strategy. Keeping in cards that make it even better, even more suspect.
Absolutely.
If you look at Luke's board, however, he actually doesn't have so many cards that are excellent in the matchup. He has, as far as cards I would consider boarding in, and this is every card I would ever consider boarding in ever. He has a Wear Tear, 2 Olivia Voldaren, a Cavern of Souls, 2 Sin Collector, 2 Oblivion Rings, a Slaughter Games, an Assemble, and a Sire. Of these, I would definitely be bringing in the Sire, the Slaughter Games, and the 2 Sin Collectors and the Cavern. Olivia's probably a little weak. Wear Tear also probably pretty weak.
So we see that Falcon Wrath, the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. In response, he tries to ping the Aristocrat. In response, Luke sacrifices a Cartel Aristocrat, and then in response to that, Christian Dawson plays his second Staticaster and gets Luke's entire board.
Yeah, we see one of the bizarre dichotomies of the blue-white-red deck in this matchup occurring as well, in that Is It Staticaster, one of the best cards in the matchup, Terminus, also one of the best cards in the matchup, and you can't really combine them both super effectively. But Christian doesn't really need to because he has Assemble the Legion.
Right, and so the Aristocrats, does it actually have a true answer to Assemble the Legion in its list, or is the Legion eventually just going to get him?
The combo kill is pretty much your only answer, and in general, I sideboard out most aspects of the combo kill in this matchup and just try to be a little more aggressive as a tempo deck. You can, however, do some things. For example, many players play Obsidat, and he can kill the opponent through an Assemble, which is not that difficult.
Interestingly enough, if you play your own Assemble the Legion, it's not that the first Assemble won't kill you, it's just going to take longer because all the tokens have the same name.
Right.
So you'll have to kill all of Luke's, and then make a whole bevy of your own, swing with them, and then kill them all again. So there's become like a lot of dead Boros soldiers.
In the case of this particular game state, Christian has access to those Is It Staticasters, so he can sort of control exactly the speed at which that happens.
Right. And then the first token swings in, and that's the first point of damage for Christian Dawson. Puts Luke down to 19.
It's not going to be the last.
Absolutely. Nope.
Luke getting dominated by these Is It Staticasters. And based on the game that I'm seeing, I feel like if he kept in these Blood Artists, he probably decided to side out perhaps Tragic Slips and Pillar of Flames. Pillar of Flames I agree with, but you can't side out Tragic Slips.
Why is that?
You have to be able to answer these Is It Staticasters. It's also a reasonable answer to things like Restoration Angel. He doesn't necessarily know his opponent's exact list. Christian appears to be playing maybe one of these more creature-like deck lists, like the one that won yesterday. Right. But at the same time, you can't just be cold.
Yeah, so Luke goes for a Blasphemous Act to try to make this Assembled Legion parody happen, and Christian syncopates it for 1.
Sure. No reason really not to. Those Is It Staticasters are clearly dominating the game, and Blasphemous Act does kill both of them.
Yep, Luke does have a follow-up Blasphemous Act, which we'll probably see next turn.
Yeah, he really has to get those Staticasters off the board. It is actually basically impossible for him to win as long as they're there.
All right, so a swing of 3 soldiers from Christian trades with the 1 soldier that Luke has to make it through. And you will hear overhead a time call. Because they're in a feature match, the clock on screen is still correct for this match.
It's definitely a little different.
And that's actually somewhat of a concern for Christian, not too much because he has Assemble the Legion going.
Looks like they're getting a double check on the time. Luke draws, passes the turn. No? He's getting stopped.
Yep.
Okay.
The clock is correct.
I imagine he would be Blasphemous Acting here.
He has an Act, a Sire of Insanity, a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, and a freshly drawn Lingering Souls.
Yeah, he can't play the Lingering Souls. It'll literally just be dead. Oh, did he miss his soldier trigger? Is that what we're talking about?
I think he may have missed the soldier trigger. He's already drawn his card.
Yep.
There's some questions then whether or not he still gets the counter. I mean, if he truly misses it, he doesn't get the counter or the soldiers.
Because as part of putting the counter on, you get the soldier. It's it's both or none, not one or the other.
Right. So when you miss that trigger, what happens is that Christian Dawson he gets to choose whether or not that happens. I think Luke a little flustered here. He then opts to cast Lingering Souls.
He wants to show off these Ghastlies, but he doesn't even get that. We've got Spirit tokens.
Is he doing well? No, I was going to say maybe it's enough creatures where you could cast Lingering Souls and then immediately Blasphemous Act hanging on to priority, but that's not even a thing.
No, it's not really relevant either. He can just cast the Blasphemous Act.
Yeah, another one that would make no sense.
Yeah.
So 3 more soldiers, bringing the total up to 5 for Christian Dawson on his turn. Legion's starting to get pretty big here. He's going to swing for 5, dropping Luke down to 11. And Luke's going to have to answer these. And the problem is that even if Luke answers the Staticasters, now he's so far behind on Assemble the Legion after missing that trigger, it's likely not relevant.
Yep.
He's drawn for turn. He has, like I said, Sire of Insanity, Blasphemous Act, Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. None of these particularly matter right now.
I don't think he drew a card for turn. Can we...
Yes, he actually has to draw a card for turn. You can't let your opponent miss that.
Still has the same 3 cards he had last turn in his hand, so he definitely missed one. No, you didn't draw that yet.
There you go. Now he draws for turn, and he hits a land.
Awesome.
I mean, I love the way he played it. You have to think of your opponent like, I wonder what you drew this turn. You know, Cat's Blasphemous Act. If you're Christian, he has Snapcaster. He could Snapcaster Syncopate it. He's counting for that. Yeah, I mean, it's not enough. I mean, but you don't really care. Like, the Staticasters have done their work.
Yeah, at this point, the game is all about that Assemble the Legion. We've already, expressed Luke is real light on answers to it. Not a lot of things can turn this around. He'll have to get something pretty big. He'd need, he only has 1 Assemble, so he can't get a second one to start outnumbering him that way. It's perhaps possible an Olivia Voldaren could do the trick. I've seen Olivia outrace Assemble before. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's one of the few ways I've lost with an Assembled Legion in play. He has access to Oblivion Rings. If he boarded those in, he can Oblivion Ring the Assemble. If he brought in his Wear and Tear, he might be able to Wear and Tear it.
So Christian shot down all the soldiers before. He just lets everything die. It doesn't actually matter here.
It's possible he could also reverse the race with Sorin, maybe. Boros Reckoner would at least stall Christian down a little bit, but those are mostly stopgap measures. They're not actually trumps.
Yeah.
He needs a trump.
Luke's going to try for post-act. He's going to play a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, but that's met by a Snapcaster on Syncopate. I want to talk about an interesting card choice here. We see that of the lands, Christian Dawson has made a one of Moorland Haunt as one of his lands.
Interesting.
He has 9 creatures in his deck, one of which is Etherling, so really 8 creatures that would ever be in the graveyard. And he's going to swing for 6. That drops Luke down to 5.
Yep. And he's facing lethal next turn.
Right, so Luke, because Christian swung all his soldiers, Luke has a chance here to deal some damage back. So that's the first 3. I'm not sure where he's getting the other 10 from.
Well, if he had a Boros Reckoner already in his hand, he would be able to draw a Blasphemous Act and...
Right, he could do both.
Bob's your uncle, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he already has he just drew a Blasphemous Act.
He just drew a Blasphemous Act, yeah. He didn't have that before. I imagine he can't play the Siren Insanity since that's like his only out is to actually draw a Boros Reckoner. I think
tapping out here for something that loses on board is probably a bad bluff. We see they're about to reach time. It looks like this is going to be turn 0. Should not be an issue as Christian should be able to win on the next turn.
Yeah, it looks like Luke throws in the flag there.
Yep, swings the team. We'll actually see Moorland Haunt get activated, eating an Is It Staticaster. Christian rethinks it and decides, I can just take this.
Decline. Yeah, I'm good. No,
one way or the other. It doesn't particularly... It shouldn't actually affect the outcome here. He's going to... he'll chump one of them, go to 11. And this is turn 0. Time has been called. But the next turn should be the last turn here.
Yep.
And if Luke is going to Blasphemous Act again. That doesn't matter though. Assemble's going up to 5.
Yeah, he'll be exactly dead.
Yeah. So it's possible that what Christian actually doesn't want to make the Moorland Haunt token there because
we missed his Lingering Souls.
He has
in the
Lingering
graveyard,
Souls.
Yep. So that will actually buy him a turn of life.
Yep. So Assemble Legion goes up to 5 soldiers.
Assuming that Christian doesn't hit any of a variety of other things.
So he still hit... Well, no, he cast the Blasphemous Axe, so hitting Boros Reckoner does not do it anymore.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that will actually turn the game around for Luke, but this does buy him a turn.
Yeah, he can block 1 of the soldier tokens, and then he can have 4 of his own cards, 5 of his own creatures to attack with. That could knock Christian another 4 damage down to 6. He still doesn't have a 6-point burn spell though. Yeah, even if Blood Artist was around.
If Christian somehow dealt 3 damage to himself, he would be able to threaten drawing a Sorin and attacking for lethal that way. But that would require some missteps on Christian's part, and it doesn't appear like he's going to make any of those.
Right.
He's just going to try and kill Luke.
So he's swinging. See how many blockers we have, and I think Christian correctly here is going to lifelink his team.
Yep, that'll put him out of range of
just about anything.
Any real conceivable thing. The Blasphemous Act plus Boros Reckoner still gets him, I think, on account of the Assemble the Legion tokens attacking.
Right.
But that's about it.
Son has 2 blocks. Luke goes down to 2. I really like that as a heads-up play from Christian. A lot of people forget about that mode on Azorius Charm.
Yep.
He was at the ready to realize when to gain 5, and that'll get a concession. Christian Dawson moves up to 6-1, still in top 8 contention. Luke Okada and the Aristocrats down to 5-2.
Yeah, I think that